Last time on 30 and Nerdy. So James Wan and Patrick Wilson have worked together before 4 different times. There's Insidious 1, Insidious 2, Conjuring 1, and Conjuring 2, and now, of course, Aquaman. I mean, come on, how excited can you be? I mean, I am so excited that the Flash movie with Ezra Miller will have Ben Affleck's Batman and Michael Keaton's Batman. I mean, I hope they're in the same scene. So in season 7, it kind of looks like Barry Allen's going to be losing his speed yet again, but, you know, he always gets it back. Wonder Woman 84 has got me so excited. I'm patiently waiting. I wish it would come out tomorrow. I wish that we could open the theaters tomorrow. What's up, Nerdskis? Welcome to night 4 of the DC FanDomonium event here at 30 and Nerdy Podcast. I am your host and Duke of Nerds, leader of the Nerd World Order, Tyler Mack. I am so excited to be discussing night 4, breaking down some of the biggest news to come out of the DC FanDome experience. Tonight is all about one particular character from DC. Now we'll get to that in a second, but I just wanted to say hello, welcome back. DC FanDome brought so many amazing moments, and I've covered it over a 4-day period, but guess what? I still haven't even scratched the surface of what is coming for the blue brand, for DC Comics, DC Entertainment. We will see more next week. I'm going to continue this DC FanDomonium experience here on the podcast next week as well. I will announce the lineup of what we're discussing next week. But as for tonight, so let's recap a little bit here, Nerd World Order. Let's talk about what we've discussed. We have talked about Zack Snyder's Justice League. We have talked about Black Adam. We have talked about the Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman 1984, The Flash, and Aquaman. And finally, here we are, nerds and nerdettes. As this night brings to a close this week's DC FanDomonium, we're going to be talking about the Batman. As for next week's lineup, be patient, one night at a time. I will let you know this weekend what to expect in next week's DC FanDomonium experience. We've got a lot to discuss, so grab your capes. Put on your blue brand t-shirts or hats. DC up, nerds, because this is the 30 and Nerdy Podcast. DJ Mike Howie, take us to the show.
It's time to get nerdy. It's the 30 and Nerdy Podcast with your host, Tyler Mack. Brought to you by Advertising Expressions, Encore Theatrical Company, Freddy Cat Productions, and Ashley Lodge Photography. 30 and Nerdy is an alternate reality radio show, a member of the Legion of Independent Podcasts, and a Badcast Company production. Join the Nerd World Order by following the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Join the conversation by using the hashtag 30andNerdyPod. Find the show in the Pod Nation at podchaser.com and rate this episode. Got something to say? Email the show at 30andnerdypod@gmail.com. Cheers to you, nerds. Now get ready to nerd out with your host, the sweet tea of the nerdy South, your Duke of Nerds, Tyler Mack.
Hello, hello, hello. Greetings and salutations to my Nerd World Order. This is your Duke of Nerds, Tyler Mack, and this is night 4 of 30 and Nerdy Podcast presents DC FanDomonium. Now, we have been talking all about the DC FanDome experience. It's so big, though, that I have to continue it into next week. I'm going to take the next few days off, let you go back, listen to all the episodes, night 1 through night 4, and then come back next week. We will break down a few more things from DC FanDome and close out the month of August with a huge DC nerd-splosion, if you will. I'm going to basically close out August with a celebration of DC's villains. That's how I want to end this month. So, next week, going to talk about a couple of more things about DC FanDome. Obviously, tonight is what you're tuning into, though. So, tonight is night 4. We're talking all about the Batman. Now, I'm not talking about the Batman as a character in the DC universe. I'm talking about the Batman. Matt Reeves, the Batman. Battinson, Robert Battinson. We got to see the trailer from DC FanDome. And if you have listened to 30 and Nerdy Podcast in the past year, at least since Robert Pattinson was announced, I started out very, very outspoken about this casting. But then I saw The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Then after that, I went on to watch a few of his independent films. Kid's got some chops. Can act. And then this trailer hit. We'll get to that later, okay? I'll play part of the trailer during this episode, and we'll break it down. We'll talk about it. But I am no longer fearful of Robert Pattinson's Batman. After seeing this trailer, I am extremely excited. I am. But before we get to all that, before we get to night 4, I want to round out this week with the same podcast promo I've been playing all week. I love Online Warriors podcast. Please, please, please check them out. If you like nerd culture, if you like video games, if you like Marvel, DC, TV, movies, whatever, what have you, nerds, Online Warriors Podcast, they're a part of some of our pod groups. They're a part of the Pod Nation. Please check them out. You will not regret it. So, let's catch up with them.
Hey everybody, this is Nerd Bomber here, one of the co-hosts of the Online Warriors podcast. Our weekly podcast started as a way for 3 friends to keep in touch and discuss their passion for movies, gaming, technology, and entertainment. And since then, we've grown into a fantastic online community. Every Wednesday, we release a new episode discussing the latest nerdy news, and then we go hands-on with our weekly adventures and a fun trivia show. Sound interesting? Check us out on every podcast platform, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or hit us up at onlinewarriorspodcast.com.
Welcome back, Nerdskis. I've said it all week. I highly recommend the Online Warriors podcast. Check them out week in and week out. They're in my order. I listen to them every week. They have an episode. So let's dive in here. We're finishing out this week of DC FanDomonium experience here at the podcast. Just this week. Gonna continue it next week with the Batman. So there was actually an entire panel on the legacy of the Batman, just in general. So let's talk a little bit about that first. This panel looked at the scope of the Batman as both a DC character and a pop culture icon. This was moderated by actor and Bat fanatic Nyembe and featured DC publisher and chief creative officer Jim Lee. Also had executive producer Caroline Dries, if I'm correct. And they also brought in Patrick Redding, who works with Warner Brother Games Montreal, and screenwriter John Ridley. They had a visit by Titans actor Brandon Thwaites and the new Batwoman, who is Javicia Leslie. So they had a nice little panel that talked about the legacy of Batman. And while most of the panel was devoted to that discussion about the importance of the Dark Knight and his continual evolution, Dryce and Leslie did tease the upcoming season of Batwoman, promising that while Kate Kane has disappeared, yes, if you did not know, Ruby Rose's Kate Kane will not be in season 2 of Batwoman. She will be kept as part of the show, though. Dryce described Leslie's newly created character, Ryan Wilder, as a character that Batwoman needs to protect. So and at some point they asked how she fits in with the legacy of the Bat, Dryce replied that she doesn't fit it. She makes it fit her. So she explained a little in further detail, but she does make it accessible for a whole other world of people, knowing that the Batwoman will not be Ruby Rose's Kate Kane anymore, and it's a completely new and original character created just for season 2, and how she'll step into the Batwoman role. So I'm excited to see that. I enjoyed Batwoman. I hate that Ruby Rose has exited the project. There's not really a whole lot of details about why. Not at least not any official details. There's a lot of rumor and innuendo, but who knows? I enjoyed her Kate Kane. I enjoyed her Batwoman, but I'm excited to see what this new Batwoman will bring to the season. So finally, Lee and Ridley announced that Friday would be that Ridley is writing an all-new Batman miniseries for DC featuring artist Nick Darrington. The pair shared a breathtaking illustration with them. If you can find it, check that out. They do have a few illustrations from the comic book, and this is from artist Ladron, I believe, was who they said. And while details of the plot were kept pretty tight to the chest, Ridley did say that the book would spend a lot of time with Lucius Fox's family and would likely feature a Batman of color. That's right. There's a new Batman comic book series coming out, and it could possibly feature a Batman of color, which that's exciting. I know that there are a lot of people out there who freak out over, these characters turning into, characters of color. And to you, I say, they're fictional characters. So, unless their story is driven by their race, it doesn't matter what color they are. Superman can be black. Batman can be black. Their characters are not rely on their race. It's not like Mulan has to be Asian. That's her story. But I'm excited to read this new series. I'm excited to see that they are evolving and moving forward with, evolving Batman as a character and as a mythos. And it really opens up the whole world that anybody can be Batman. It does not matter your color. I like that. I'm excited to see the possibility of that. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that panel before we delve into the truly the main reason we are here tonight on night 4. So yeah, I highly advise you to check out that panel. I thought it was cool. I think it's under the legacy of the Batman or Batwoman panel. I don't know. Of course, some things that happen in the FanDome are not out to rewatch. They wanted to keep a little bit of exclusivity, which is cool. So why don't we move on to the Batman as a movie, Matt Reeves' The Batman, and we'll play the trailer after a word from one of our amazing sponsors. From us here at Advertising Expressions, we want you to know that we hope that you and yours have been well amid this pandemic. We have been blessed to have survived ourselves and realize that here in Morristown, it can be hard to keep things rolling in times like these. Therefore, whether you are a business that has closed and are looking to reopen, a business that has crawled through the time fighting for the next breath, or maybe you are a business that has done better in this time, we want to help you. See, our business is to promote yours, and we strive to do that by getting your name in front of as many people as possible, as often as possible, for as long as possible. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are giving you 19% off new quotes that result in orders of $190 or more. Use the promo code NERDRONA19. That's NERDRONA and the number 19. You can find us at 2103 Morningside Drive in Morristown, Tennessee, or contact us at 423-586-3270.
From your secret friend. Who? Haven't a clue. Let's play a game. Just me and you. Any of this mean anything to you?
You're becoming quite a celebrity. Why is he writing to you? If you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your blind eye?
The hell are you supposed to be? I'm vengeance. These guys crazy.
You're a part of this too. How am I part of it? You'll see.
Can you say chills? Because after I saw that trailer for the first time, I had chills. I had to watch it 3 or 4 other times just to get myself under control. So, the Hall of Heroes wrapped up with a 30-minute discussion with director Matt Reeves about the Batman, and it did not disappoint. Introduced by Robert Pattinson and moderated by DC FanDome host Aisha Tyler, the fast-talking Reeves covered quite a bit of the Batman material over the course of the panel. He included giving fans a pretty clear idea of what the story they're in for when the Batman debuts next October. That's right. We have to wait a whole year and 1 month. But hey, I think the wait is going to be completely worth it. As has been discussed before, though, the Batman is set during Bruce Wayne's second year as a crime fighter, meaning it's not an origin, but the Dark Knight is clearly still establishing himself and becoming the hero he'll eventually become. As Reeves made abundantly clear, is still establishing what the Batman is, and he's far from perfect. While Batman is no longer a new presence in Gotham City when this movie starts, he's not having the effect on the city that he wants to have. And that's when the murders start. The murders that we see in the trailer shed a little bit of light on the true history of Gotham and open up a world of corruption that touches on Batman's origins, forcing Bruce to kind of confront the question on where his family might have sat in all that. Where did the Waynes stand? Did his family fall in with the corruption, or were they fighting the corruption? We'll learn that. Reeves promises that the Batman will be a mystery and a detective story, but a deeply personal one for Batman, and very personal for fans as well. Later, Reeves answered some fan questions, including some of the movies that influenced his vision for the Batman. Some of it was Chinatown, The French Connection, and Taxi Driver, which we, learned that Taxi Driver has kind of driven a lot of comic book movie creators in the past year or so. Taxi Driver was a driving force behind Todd Phillips' Joker movie. So I think we're finally realizing as a nerd culture that those horror and those thriller movies, that's where comic book movies can come from, especially in the DC universe. So, and one surprising comic, Darwin Cook's Batman Ego has been considered a driving force for this movie. And also we've heard The Long Halloween could push a few different factors into the movie. He even shared a bit of what we can expect from the recently announced HBO Max television series set in the universe of Matt Reeves' film. That series, which Reeves is working on with Boardwalk Empire creator Terrence Winter, will be set during Batman's first year in Gotham. During the initial appearance of this new masked vigilante who seems to have declared war on Gotham's underworld, Reeves explained that you'll see the story through the point of view of the corrupt cops of the Gotham Police Department. So it's going to be kind of like the show Gotham, but grittier and meaner, and during Batman's first year as opposed to Bruce Wayne as a child. He'll be Detective Gordon, just like he is in the movie. So we'll get to see what that is. No, there is no conversation yet on if Pattinson is heavily involved with that HBO Max series, or maybe if he'll have a cameo. What we don't know yet. We do know that there's going to be one corrupt cop in particular, and that this show is going to center around, and it's kind of going to be a show about the battle for this corrupt cop's own soul. So one would think that it could be Detective Harvey Bullock, possibly, that's centered around this show. I think that would be a good addition. So we don't know, though. However, the highlight of the panel was definitely the teaser that they debuted, which looks absolutely breathtaking, if you ask me. Despite the fact that what we see in the trailer is only 25% of the movie. Only 25% of this movie has been filmed before COVID shut it down. So we still have a whole 75% of a movie to see. And we could even see something different than the trailer we saw. They could cut some of what we saw in the trailer. We don't know. It's moody, it's dark, it's gripping. The teaser is everything we wanted and more. And I don't know about you nerds, but I cannot wait to see more of the Batman. In fact, I'd love it a lot more than anything that if I'm being honest, it stole the show and set the bar. It set the tone for the coming year or two for DC. And just to know we're going to get it. I've loved it. I'd love a lot more of everything. And to be honest, we're going to get a lot more of everything. There is going to be a day 2, a second day of DC FanDome, which is Explore the Multiverse, and that's coming September 12th, and features over 100 hours of content that will be available on demand for an entire day. You thought 8 hours was a lot this first time around? 100 hours of content is coming our way September 12th for Explore the Multiverse. You better rest up, DC fans, because that's going to be a lot to unpack. And guess what? I'll talk about it here on the show. So we're going to we've got a lot to discuss in the DC universe. This entire DC FanDome experience opened us up to so much coming, and it's got so much of us excited. You don't have to be exclusively blue brand. I mean, you can be a fan of Marvel, you can be a fan of other comic books, but if you are a true blue brand, this past weekend changed your life for the better. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the DC FanDome experience next week. But before we close out this show, I want to break down the trailer a little bit for you that I just played. I'm going to play it again, and I just stop every now and then. Let's replay this thing. So we hear tape as it is. Sounds like duct tape. We're given this visual of this guy taping up someone. Looks to be some type of leader. It says "No More Lies" on it. All the FBI, Gotham PD, Detective Gordon are in the room. It's amazing. And why have we not thought of Jeffrey Wright for Detective Gordon before now? Now, obviously, Paul Bano has signed on as the Riddler. We know that this is the Riddler. There's Batman in his first edition costume. It's dark. It's gritty. To the Batman. And obviously that's Andy Serkis as Alfred. We get a nice little glimpse of Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. We'll look at Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Some thugs in clown makeup, Joker-esque. You can't tell me it's not Joker makeup. You can't tell me any different. I'm vengeance. Colin Farrell looks rough as the Penguin. And it looks like he's going more as like the video game gangster Penguin as opposed to supervillain, which is great. I love when he's the thug. broody. Completely broody. It's oh man, it's fantastic. I'm so excited. Oh, can it not be October 2021 already? Goodness. Well, listen, I do not want to keep you any longer. This has been fun. This has been insightful this week, going back and talking about DC FanDome during this FanDomonium special event that I've had this week. And guess what, Nerd Skis? It's not over. Next week we're going to be talking about the stuff I've left out. I mean, we have so many more panels and releases and trailers and teasers to talk about. So we're going to get to that next week. I'll let you know in a couple days what that schedule looks like. Okay? So I just want to send out a special thank you to all the Patreon supporters. I know the pandemic has been tough, yet you have continued to support the 30 and Nerdy podcast throughout, and I'm very thankful for that. I want to send a huge thanks out to everyone that participates in our groups, whether it be the Twitterverse or our playlists on podchaser.com. I am extremely thankful for all of you. If you go to podchaser.com, you can search for playlists at the top there. Look for these two playlists, okay? The Apocalypse, which is TheApodalypse. Now, there's no space there. It's TheApodalypse. And also Pod Nation, Podnation, Pod Nation. Those two playlists, go to podchaser.com. We're in that playlist with a group of our other independent podcast friends, and it's fantastic. They are talented, they're exciting, they're insightful. I listen to 90% of them week in and week out. Please pick one each day to try something new. Look for those podcasts in that playlist. Give them a rating. If you like what you hear, tell them 30 and Nerdy sent you. I also want to reach out to our Twitter groups, Alternate Reality Radio, the Legion of Independent Podcasts, Pod Nation, and Podalypse. Thank you so much. There are so many reasons that I do this show, that I have continued this show, that I've kept this show going. And one of those main reasons is the fun that I have had. And not just the fun getting to talk about something nerdy, but the fun I have had meeting people like Ken M from the ODPH, Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. Like talking to the guys of 3 Fat Nerds, of 3 Hours Later, of Lit Gaming Arena, Online Warriors Podcast. I mean, the passion that you all have and talking to you all and learning from you all that have been doing this for longer than I have. I've only been going for about 16 months. I mean, thank you. This is why I continue to do it, is because of groups like that I am a part of, to see the passion and the hard work and the help that we give each other in these groups. While you're listening, I hope that you have followed along. I hope that you will give us a rating. I hope it's 5 stars. I really do. Leave a review. What do you think? If you have been listening for a while, let me know what you think of the changes that have been made. Let me know what you want to hear in the coming months in Season 3 that is really just around the corner if you think about it. So let me know, 30andnerdypod@gmail.com. We're going to take a few days off here, give you time to catch up. Next week, I'm going to lead off the week with Necessary Evil, celebrating the villains of the DC universe. And then we're going to continue talking about and breaking down the rest of DC FanDome. So next week is all DC all the time. And that's how you should live your life as well, if you ask me. But that is it for me, nerds and nerdettes. This has been a great week. I've enjoyed the DC. Take some time, catch up on these episodes. I thank you for tuning in to these episodes. I will catch you all on the flip-flop. And, you all have been beautiful. I have been your Duke of Nerds, Tyler Mack. Stay sanitized. Stay safe. Stay kind to one another, no matter what walk of life your neighbor's been from. Be kind. Love one another. Help one another. DC up, nerds. Mike Howie, take us home.
You've been listening to the 30 and Nerdy podcast with your Duke of Nerds, Tyler Mack. Brought to you by Ashley Lodge Photography, Freddy Cat Productions, Encore Theatrical Company, and Advertising Expressions. 30 and Nerdy is an alternate reality radio show, a member of the Legion of Independent Podcasts, and a Badcast Company production. Join the Nerd World Order by following the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and follow along with the conversation using the hashtag 30andNerdyPod. Find us in the Pod Nation at podchaser.com and rate this episode. Got something to say? Email us at 30andNerdyPod@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, cheers to you, nerds.
That's all, folks.